Today on the Jacob Buehrer Show, I am so happy to be joined by Brian Alvey, who's with the Warrior 110 Project. How are you doing today? And thank you for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
So before we kind of get into the Warrior 110 Project, which is phenomenal, and some of the adventures that you're involved in business-wise, because you're an entrepreneur, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, shoot. Where to begin? I grew up over here on the east side of Indianapolis, not too far from where we're at right now in New Pal.
What high school did you go to?
I went to Warren.
Warren.
Yeah, went to Warren Central. And then, at one point, joining the Army shortly after I left high school, I eventually, and then went to Franklin College after a few years in the Army and been in Franklin, Indiana ever since. So, I've had a lot of businesses based out of Indianapolis. For the most part, everything I do is run and operated out of Franklin now.
So take us through what are some of those businesses?
Well, I'm a business consultant by trade. That's what my wife might call my real job. It's the one that pays the bills predominantly over the last 20 plus years. So I work with a lot of small businesses, predominantly in the food and beverage industry, bars, restaurants, breweries, distilleries, wineries, stuff like that. Do other businesses, service oriented businesses, customer service related. And other than that, I also own a private investigations firm. And then I have a few other little investment businesses like my bourbon line that I did. I partnered with a really good friend of mine by the name of Chris
And
Lytle,
he's
who you've
also
had
been
on
on
your
the show.
podcast.
Take
Yeah.
us through a little bit. Just tell a little bit about the Lights Out Bourbon.
Well,
The college kids who are 21 and older, of course.
it's funny, Chris, as you've had him on your show, he's a UFC legend,
Yep.
former fighter, great Indiana high school wrestler, college wrestler, just all the things he did in Japan before making it to UFC through different organizations in his fight background. He's just very well known here. Just one of those guys that was always respected as just an old school blue collar. The guy's just now in the process to retire from the fire department and everything. And we're friends, and we were sitting
And
around.
business partners.
And we were sitting around in a bar that I opened and owned at the time down in Franklin called the Mint, and we were drinking some whiskey and hanging out, and one of the younger guys in the room recognized Chris and came over and started talking to us about the old fight game and all this stuff. And at some point he was just, hey, what do you think about Conor McGregor's whiskey? And Chris, being the guy who's noted for being the kindest guy in the room, the nicest guy in the room, was like, oh yeah, it's pretty good and everything. And me, known for having a lack of tact and inner dialogue, I think it's horrible. I might have said it a little differently, a little bit more curt, but joking around, I was like, you know what, we're going to create your whiskey. Let's create a Chris Lytle. Well, let's create the Lights Out Bourbon. And Chris is like, hey, that's a great idea, dude. Well, I think Chris thought I was joking because the next day I texted him a mock of the label that I had created. And he's like, "Oh, we're really doing this." I'm like, "Heck yeah, we're going to do this," and it just went from there. And then,
And where's it available at?
Well, Hancock, located not too far from here in Fortville, Indiana, is this distillery that we've contracted with, Moondrops Distillery. Just an unbelievable organization. They put out so many quality products. We're very blessed to be working with them. But it's you can pick it up there at the distillery and then different liquor stores and bars around. And we're always growing new locations. We're doing a lot of bottle signings where, we show up. Chris hangs out with everybody, talks about whatever they want to talk about. The old UFC and then he signs all the bottles sold that day personally.
So, and this is a question that I have. Is it harder, since you're in the beverage industry, of course, is alcohol harder to get into stores compared to if somebody were to start an energy drink company?
Are
there, I mean, there's,
I can't speak specifically because I don't know about getting energy drinks on the shelf at places. It seems like that. Well, I guess all both markets have been saturated at this point. First things first, you got to put together a quality product, and then the big thing is what's going to compel people to give it a shot. It's no secret that our ace in the hole with that is Chris's face on the cover of that bottle. Everybody knows Chris, and that draws them to it, and then so they will try it and they'll buy it, and then the fact that it's a quality product is why they'll buy it again. Because it doesn't matter how popular the face is on it. if it's not good, they're not gonna buy it again. So, you know, giving people a reason through marketing to purchase it, then giving them a reason to continue to buy it through the quality of the product is why it's growing and it's sustainable. You know, working with Moondrops has been huge, you know, because they're just an amazing distillery that puts out quality products in their entire line, their whole portfolio.
Interesting. Wow. And then take us to, do you have a couple other business ventures?
I do investigations. I have that. Do that.
Do you mind giving us a pro and a con of that?
Pro is I can make my own schedule, which that's a big part of my whole life. You know, I'm not married to any other uh, organization with respect. I don't draw a W-2 from anybody for a while. I've been infected with this disease called entrepreneurialism. So I've had that. Outside of the military, I haven't drawn a W-2 tax form for going on 20 years. So it's a blessing that I get to you know, it's accountability. You know, I get to do it the way I feel it needs to be done. Just same thing with any of my businesses, but at the end of the day, the only person I can blame if it goes wrong is myself, because I made the decisions, you know. So I do enjoy that. I'm very selective of what I get into with respect to investigations. I'm not the guy to call if your name's John and your girlfriend Jenny might be hanging out with some dude named Joe, so to speak. I'm not into that. I work directly for law firms for the most part, so I don't interface directly with the client very often. Most of what I do is in criminal defense. So
Interesting.
yeah.
So any cons would you say, big ones?
Some of the stuff you see, especially with criminal defense, I mean, you have to have the ability to compartmentalize and process a lot of that, you know, especially when there's things where other human beings are negatively impacted, affected, assaulted, injured, murdered, killed. You know, when you get into those things, I mean, if you have any degree of empathy in your heart, it's going to affect you. And you know,
It's kind of like, a first responder sound they get to the scene of a car
absolutely,
accident.
you know, I spent over 20 years in uniform in the military. It's a lot of why I created the Warrior 110 with respect to post-traumatic stress, and then first responders, firefighters, and police officers, which I think both are saints for what they
And
do.
take us through the Warrior 110 project. That's a
Sure.
big thing going on.
Well, I battled with my own struggles with post-traumatic stress and whatnot at one point, and was able to seek out, find the light at the end of the tunnel and pull myself through it. And predominantly, you know, I'm not saying this is any sort of a badge of honor. It was unfortunate. Kind of basically did it on my own. And that's unfortunate. It shouldn't be that way. And that was significantly more luck than anything else. Probably 99% luck. That I had the gift, the blessing to be able to have done that. So I just don't see where as anybody should have to do that. So keeping awareness is the biggest part. I'm not a doctor. I'm not the smart guy in the room. I don't have the alphabet behind my name. So I don't know what the answer is to post-traumatic stress per se. We'll leave that up to the doctors, those
Well,
folks
there's
that are
several
smarter than
groups
me.
and things.
But keeping awareness is key. So they get the opportunity to continue to focus on it. And it's not just the military veterans or the first responders that struggle with post-traumatic stress and traumatic brain injuries. There's so many people in our society struggle with that that don't even know it. So everybody at large will benefit from the continued process of these smarter guys than me to help figure out what's going on, so they could come up with not a cure, but a solution to what post-traumatic stress is. You know, if you notice, I don't say the word disorder. I don't say PTSD very often. I don't have anything against it. It's just, I think it's improperly named. I think it's PTSI. It's an injury, not a disorder.
Correct.
Because I think, we can and will find solutions to it, remedies, a cure, for lack of a better word. A therapeutical process that helps people, and everybody's different, so everybody's going to go through it and find their solutions differently. And I really think a lot of that's going to be based somewhere other than pharmacology. I think that is a bridge. I think we've over prescribed so many of these mind altering drugs for years with and I don't want to name any names, but we all know which ones they are, that are constantly, just all it is we continue to put a Band-Aid on top of an infected wound. Well, nothing happens under that Band-Aid other than it festers. It's like, oh, it's out of sight, out of mind, but it's not. It continues to grow and do damage. So we need to peel the wound, or peel the Band-Aid off the wound, and actually treat that wound. And I think, like I said, it's going to take some people smarter than me that are already working on it, that these doctors that can understand and deliver results when it comes to how to effectively treat post-traumatic stress. However, I found some ways personally, like I said, not everybody's the same. One, I mean, I think everybody benefits from exercise, getting after it in the gym.
What's your favorite gym workout?
Well, and that's the big thing that we're making a hard push for the Warrior 110 now, is helping get combat veterans scholarships and abilities to get into gymnasiums that and academies that practice jujitsu. There's some amazing, yeah. I'm a real advocate for jujitsu, the practitioner of it for anybody, everybody. It's an amazing thing, and there's something about it. I don't know how it works, to be honest with you, Jacob. I just know that it does work for my own benefit. The therapeutic. I when I could have that, we all get that day where that black cloud's just hovering over us, and you feel it down in the dumps that day, and so just take that from somebody who doesn't struggle with depression into somebody that does struggle with depression and post-traumatic stress, and it just compounded. So there are days that I just don't want to get off the couch, so to speak, that day that I feel horrible, but I know that if I just get up, grab my bag, throw my gear in it, go to the gym, get on it, and it's the most amazing drug you could ever possibly consume. It's like within 5 to 10 minutes of just getting after it, all that goes away, it dissipates. It's just, like I said, I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I just know that it does work. And I think it's a great option for a lot of people out there struggling. I think they would be
So college kids as well.
absolutely shocked at what good it could do. It's just such a stress reliever. It releases things. It lets things go. To oversimplify it, like me, I'm just a goon, right? It you can't really worry about all life's problems if you're struggling with not getting choked out, so to speak. And not that it's that aggressive all the time with people that are just wanting to get into it as a hobby, but when you're so intensely focused on something such as jujitsu, at that moment you can't think about anything but the moment and the predicament that you're in. It just lets other things go, as opposed to just dropping a drug down your as I say, your pie hole, and then, oh, I know all these problems are here, but I just don't care anymore. It helps you process and solve your problems, as opposed to just clouding your problems to where you can't see it. You know, you can take a problem and shove it in a closet and shut the door. It's still there. Just because you can't see it, possibly hear it, it's still there. It's like, that's what we always talk about, is compartmentalization. When you know when you deal with trauma in your life, whether it's something you're seeing, something you're involved in, you compartmentalize it. They always say, you compartmentalize it, put it in chambers in your mind, but they don't tell you what to do with it when it's in there, especially if you keep dogpiling it with more and more and more, to the point where, that door can't shut, and that door bursts open, and then what do we do with it? This is helping you process those things, go through those things in a more of a mentally controlled manner, if that makes any sense. It helps you think through your problems without dealing with the pain and the stress, because post-traumatic stress, depression, all those, it's real stuff. It's painful. It's painful in a different way than breaking your arm. And it has to be treated as such. And like I said, to bring this whole thing full circle, if I can just continue to do my small part in keeping awareness up, where the smart people in the room with the alphabet behind their names can continue to focus on it, to try to come up with the solutions to it, then that's a win for everybody. And it trickles far beyond veterans. It trickles into all of society. There's so many people walking around with post-traumatic stress, maybe don't even realize they do, due to, some bad trauma as a child, sexual assault, horrific car accident, the witness of a horrific car accident. And if everything affects everybody differently, so you can't judge everybody. It's whatever happened to you. And this gives them the opportunity to kind of focus on it, and hopefully they find a solution to get rid of it for people.
For sure.
There's no reason why people should walk around their entire life suffering every day.
appreciate. I mean, that's something that's very true. So take in a couple of weeks, you're doing something big with the project. Take us through that.
Yeah, so the Warrior 110 was founded on a really, really stupid idea I had at one point. And that was to ruck march, which a ruck is, we put our rucksacks back on our back, just like we were in our military, our heavy rucks. And I started on the banks of the Ohio River in New Albany, and I made my way over the course of 5 days to Franklin, Indiana. And we were mission complete at the time that I mentioned it before, the Mint, the bar that I own. And it was just to raise awareness and funds for everything I stated to combat post-traumatic stress and combat veterans. Excuse me, get the hiccups. That's evolved. This year will be the 5th annual that I've done. We are starting in Louisville. We're going to cross the Ohio.
What day is this?
This will start, I think, November 6th or 5th. I haven't got the hard date yet.
So after the election, there's
the
election.
Go vote early.
Yeah.
At least as long as it's available. And then, but it's kind of nice because Veterans Day this year, for the first time, will be on a Saturday when we always finish. We always encompass Veterans Day in our walk. This year we get to finish on Veterans Day, and we're taking it all the way to the Circle this year in Indianapolis. Wow. So we're adding a little over 20 miles to the thing. So we're calling it the Warrior 110 plus. We've traditionally averaged 22 a day, although that's average. Some days we do more, some days we do less. It depends on.
Do you guys have a run or mainly walk?
I ran a bunch one year with my rock on. That wasn't a good idea. I ended up with some hairline fractures in my shins. So I'm old, I'm brittle. So
how many people do this?
Me and our vice president do the whole thing together entirely, and that's Darren Tissender. Darren lives in New Albany, Indiana. He's an Air Force veteran, and he and I do the whole thing.
And do you camp and how do you camp?
Oh, so the first year I tried doing the whole I'm a hardcore, guy thing, and I'm too old for that stuff. So the first year we just pushed in the wood line, slept on the ground. Never doing that again. So now we stay in hotels, drink Lights Out Bourbon, get hot tubs, but we put the miles in. Like the mission is to bring awareness to what veterans struggle with and post-traumatic stress and traumatic.
So this will be the most that you've ever done.
In one shot. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
I never tracked my.
Do you just fall asleep then at night, or what's it like if you get 4 hours and you got to go the next day?
It just depends. Like there's one day we did over 40. So I slept good that night. I'd say that, but I really did have some pain. But it just takes,
So how long?
You'd be amazed at what your body can
40 miles. How in one day? I'm trying to think how that's possible. That would be about 12 hours,
give or take. Yeah. I don't. We started in the dark and we finished dark. Sometimes it depends on the terrain. It depends on if it rains or something and my shoes get wet. Foot maintenance is very important for any former foot soldier. So change socks a lot, change shoes sometimes. Depending. So you'd be surprised how far you walk in a day, though. It's not. It's more of a psychological thing. I joke.
Do you listen to music when you do it?
No, I have, but generally it's just Darren and I are shoulder to shoulder. We just chat the whole way, or just enjoy the silence. I mean, we're so inundated with information on a day-to-day basis, predominantly from that thing we carry in our pockets all the time, our phones, social media. It's just really nice to let it go and be peaceful for a while. I joke, I said the best stretch of that whole entire thing is the area where I can't get phone signal. So I just embrace it. Southern Indiana is some of the most beautiful country in the world. It's the most underrated part of this. I love Southern Indiana, and we shoot now. The first year we went up 135, and that was a bit precarious in certain locations just because it was very rural, just unincorporated. There wasn't the shoulder on the side of the road that we really needed. So there was a couple times we really had to dodge some cars on these windy, smaller tracks, probably more North Jackson, South Brown County area. We got the Hoosier National Forest. Everything was a little more dangerous. So ever since the second year moving forward, we predominantly go up US 31 now. US 31's got a wide shoulder on both sides of the road. Like we generally walk facing traffic. So I always joke. So if they decide to careen into me, at least I know who I'm haunting. so they'll hit me from behind
Yeah.
once I've passed. But we come up, and it's generally flat. It's just a lot more amenities, gas stations, stuff like that. If we, grab extra water or something, something to eat or something like that. So we just treks all the way up 31. I'm still figuring out the final route because we went to Greenwood last year and did the American Legion post there. They were unbelievably good to us. And we had our mission complete party there this year where I got to figure out the route from there to the
So what did you
circle.
say the total was again, that you're gonna be doing this year, mileage?
I honestly, I don't know the exact number. I'll know after it's
But
done.
it's
'Cause we're gonna
somewhere.
do it. It's
What do you
well over
think?
110.
Got it, okay.
So, um, the route though this year is gonna be a little, I gotta figure that out because
So
about the
probably
time I
should-
get to Greenwood, once you get into Marion County, there's no sidewalk or really any shoulder. There's more curb on 31. So I'm gonna have to deviate off 31 because there's just gonna be no space for us
So
to
you're probably
walk.
thinking 120 miles,
Oh, easy.
and this is in about 5 days?
5 to
6
6.
to-
We don't know when our start. We may knock out a few miles the night before.
Interesting, wow.
So we just break it up, and if we stop in the middle of nowhere and we have to go to a hotel, we'll have our support vehicle pick us up, take us to the hotel, but then the next day we'll reinsert where we left off.
Interesting, yeah, I was gonna ask about that,
Yeah,
so.
just reinsert where we left off.
Interesting.
So sometimes it's funny, it's psychologically, when the hotel's further up the road in the direction that we're going, let's say 20 miles, the next morning to have to go backwards to go reinsert it is psychologically like, oh,
Wow.
can't just start here. But we do it. So
Interesting. Well, good luck on that. Stay
I
safe out
appreciate
there.
it.
And then is there anything else you'd like to say and maybe advice for young folks? You of course served in the military,
Right.
but you were 18 at one point, 19.
Yeah.
Probably doing a lot of activities that kids this age do. So what's your advice?
Man, you guys got it harder than we did.
And that's the first time I've heard of the development that they like to say it's so much easier.
Well, the thing that you have that makes it definitively harder than we had
Cell
is
phones, and you see things.
cell phones, cameras, social media. All of us
You can
made
feel included 2 hours earlier, and then you see social media posts and you feel disincluded 2 hours later.
it's just kind of the nature of it and the culture that has evolved from it. I mean, you can't do anything and not be on camera today. I mean, you can't do anything and not be on camera today. There's cameras freaking everywhere. So you're supposed to make mistakes when you're 18 and 19 and 20, but then they're not supposed to haunt you for the rest of your life. But you guys are growing up. There's a lot of stuff at 18 and 19 years old that you think is a good idea to put on social media that in 10 years you're going to dramatically change your mind and regret that out there. And once it's on the internet, it's on the internet forever. It's not going away. I feel there's a lot of, and the problem is it gets people my age doing the same thing. And your whole life is captured and stored for posterity. And I feel bad for you guys.
I can't wait to see 20 years from now people run for public office. I mean, look what they brought back against some people.
Yeah.
What they did in college.
Some of the stuff that we put out on social media these days, you're going to need some thick skin in a few years. And there's just going to be a lot of regret, I think, from it. I think social media, so part of what I do as a business consultant is I help businesses cultivate and run their social media. It is one of the most amazing, let's just talk about Facebook. Facebook's the one that predominantly everybody has the most. It's one of the most unbelievable communication tools. It's probably the best communication tool that's ever been invented, period. For businesses to reach out to people.
Email?
No, because there's a practice. I can get online right now and I can see what my entire family's been up to in the last day or so because of photos. I can say my father lives in Knoxville, sister lives in Colorado, but it's like we're still a part of it, and it's just constantly there. You see their day to day. I'm not getting update letters through email every day. It's an amazing communication tool if used wisely.
Which I sometimes will message people on Facebook and that's on interviews.
It is, but it also, there's nothing all inclusive of good or bad in this world. So there's a downside to it. And the downside is a lot of the stuff that we communicate every day.
Can I give an example real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
So my mom works in insurance, and we had this conversation a couple nights ago, and she said that they've subpoenaed before people who say that they're injured and they can't work
Mhm.
because of a car accident, and they go through Facebook,
There it is.
and the person did a marathon a day ago. So can they really not work
That
for a
is,
month? If
I'll
they
tell you
can go
this,
on a
on the
marathon.
investigation side, Facebook is one of my number one tools.
And
But
people wouldn't think that. So
it's amazing.
be careful what you post.
I literally, my brother works in investigations as well.
I check Facebook before I do interviews with people to sometimes even see their political views. Not because I wouldn't interview somebody if they're a Democrat or Republican. I've had on George Bush's vice president, who's a Republican, Dan Quayle, and I've also had on Michael Dukakis, who's about as liberal as you can go, who's the Democratic nominee a couple of decades ago. So I've had on people both sides, but sometimes politics gets brought up.
Sure.
So if it's somebody who I might tend to agree with more, I'll feel more safe if the conversation goes that way. But if they're not the way that I think, I want to make sure to not ever bring it up, period. So especially a lot of these people I've interviewed in media, or younger people who are liberal, I can see, what they've posted in the last 2 years in their profile.
Absolutely.
And it says what you've donated to Facebook. So
and
it's a great tool, like you say.
If you're trying to cultivate a network of friends, you need to recognize that not everybody's going to agree with you politically. And honestly, I mean, if you're defining things to which you choose who you're going to be friends with is politics, you got to dig deeper into your own heart. And confession was bad about spewing political stuff on Facebook years back, and I recognized that it was far more divisive. Nobody has ever been convinced of anything or changed their mind about anything politically because of somebody else's Facebook page. You're not convincing the masses. You're not changing minds. You'll end up being constant arguments or doing something which I think is worse, speaking to an echo chamber. And you're not getting any pushback on your ideas. So what does that tell you indirectly? That I'm right all the time, which we're wrong more than we're right half the time. So that makes sense. That was horrible math. But anyway, we need to kind of damper that a little bit. So if you go look at my Facebook, which we're friends on Facebook, you've looked at my Facebook, you don't see anything political, do you?
No.
Nothing. You see,
I know other friends I'm not going to say on the record.
Yep. I've got there, some of them are mutual friends.
Yes.
But that's their choice and they're allowed to have it. I personally, what I want to do, because I use Facebook a lot for nurturing relationships with friends and family. However, I also use it for business. And the first thing you do when you think about going into business with them, you look at their social media. What do they got out there? Are they constantly bickering and arguing with people and drawing negative attention to themselves, which would then in part bring it upon you if you're associated with them, or are they not? So my personal choice is my Facebook. And don't, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. I'll post something, I'll speak to a negative on occasion. And, but by and large, if you look at mine, I've got posts of my family in a positive light, my kids, whatever.
Your business stuff.
My business stuff, which is in a positive light. So obviously,
I think a photo of a cigar, maybe.
Cigars, bourbon, beer, good time stuff. My food. It's funny, 10 years ago, I would say, people need to quit posting pointless photos of their food on social media and start talking about the real issues. Now I'm completely I'm like, stop being the constant, the crier, the town crier that's crying wolf on social media and post a picture of scrambled eggs for a change. I'm over it. It's great. You need to bring, if anybody's going to listen to you.
Post a photo of you with other people at having a good time.
I post positive quotes, just quotes that make you think and stuff like that. And it's funny, people I've literally had people message me, was that about me? I'm like, no. Well, we had this interaction. I was like, no, it had nothing to do with you, man. I bank those things. I think of those things. I save those things. I put them out randomly. And generally, I always tell people, if I'm posting, it's probably because it's something that hit me, it touched me. So I'm not saying it to the masses as preaching. I'm saying it to myself.
Sure.
And if anybody else benefits from reading it as well, then I'm happy to have done that. So try to use your social media in a positive light.
And that'd be your big advice.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't focus on it. But with that said, how many selfies does one need? It's like, how many posts of that, where you're just simply trying to draw attention to you. It's like, I just feel, be careful. You
Yep.
might end up, it might end up coming back to haunt you. And we're only talking about social, like social media is mainstream social media, Facebook. There are a lot of people on these other platforms, the OnlyFans of the world and stuff like that. I can't imagine.
Yeah, I'm not on
Then,
any of that. I
well,
want to be
of
clear.
course you're
So
not.
if you like
But
my show, there's no content on there.
Yeah.
Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, and
Yeah.
YouTube are the ones.
But I just can't imagine that that's not for a majority of the people that are
I have too many
using
apps.
those.
That's my biggest
Yeah,
thing.
right. I just can't imagine that that's just, there's not going to be a high percentage of the people that are using those today that later aren't wishing they hadn't.
Because a boss might look
Used
at
it.
it and say, "Oh, you're preoccupied with a side hustle."
I
I
feel
can't
bad for
hire
those
you.
folks. So,
And that's the thing. And I think a lot of it is, you see, it's so easy to get caught up in a trap in
it
anything
is.
today's.
And when you're in that echo chamber and you're just constantly getting positive feedback, only because you have people that are agreeing with you for whatever their motivation is, and nobody to call BS on you when we need to be called BS on once in a while, because we're not all, it's having a diversity of thought in the room. Here's what I tell people: there's arguing and there's fighting. Arguing is a good thing. We argue in a court of law. We argue on the Senate floor. Argument between two intelligent people that have the right intentions.
We argue when it comes to science.
Yeah. But argument between two intelligent people where you're trying to find the right answers in life is a good thing. That's where we do find the right answers in life. Bickering solves nothing. All it does is create enemies and cause, and it just arguing a point because you're well intended, you're trying to find the right answer with somebody like you that believes something differently, or just maybe they just have a different view of as to where they're coming from. That's where the right answers in life are found. But it just be careful if you just get into the online social media verbiage wars, the keyboard warrior crap. I mean, it's not doing anything for you but wasting your time, causing you angst, probably leading to some sort of depression. And just learn to walk away from that stuff. Nobody. So you won an argument on the internet. Congratulations. Nobody's putting that in their resume.
Right. If you win a free trip to DC, yeah, people might put that in their resume.
Find some peace. Create your peace.
For sure.
Take a long walk of over 110 miles. Maybe you'll find some peace.
Well, I wish you the very best of luck on that. I know we got a lot of mutual friends. So
yes, we do.
Best of luck on it. I look forward to, maybe I'll be in town. Sometimes I come back on Saturdays quite a bit, so maybe I'll be in town.
Well, we'll stay connected. We'll stay done. And I appreciate you doing this. If I could, just real quick, if anybody would like to know more about the Warrior 110,
where can they find
it? Website is the Warrior 110.org. The Warrior 110, or just dump the Warrior 110 into Facebook and it'll pop up. Our page will pop up. You can communicate directly with us through the messenger there. And you also see the link to our website there as well. But you can find all of us on the social media platform as well. So, but again, I want to thank you for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity. I feel honored with, I see the list of the people you got on your show and it's pretty impressive.
Well, the local interviews always do better. And a good buddy of ours, Jay, has emphasized that on me, So thank you so much.
Something connects with your audience. It's awesome. You're doing a great job.
For sure.
All right,
and then the girls, like whenever I have on these Dance Moms, you've probably heard of that show, the Dance Mom show. That's on. I'm shocked you haven't heard of it. Jay's even watched it, so
I'm not surprised by that.
Yeah, he does have a daughter.
I think Jay's far more in tune to the pop culture world than I am at this point.
Sure.
He's pretty astute when it comes to those
things.
things.
You have to check out the show. I'll have to send you a link to it.
Absolutely, I'll do it.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much. Stay safe on the walk, and maybe see you at the.
And you be safe going back north to Lafayette.
For sure. Thank you so much again for coming on the Jacob Buehrer Show today.
Absolutely.